To sojournmusic.com. This is Mike Cosper, and we are continuing with our 5 questions series. Today we are sitting down with Josh Dix. Uh, Josh, tell us who you are, how you became involved in worship, where you're at.
Yeah, I grew grew up in the church uh, as a kind of grumpy kid, but a musician and an artist, and so always kind of was in the worship arena, getting pulled into that, and that eventually led me to the journey where I'm the worship pastor. Have been there in some fashion since launch date, which was September of 2002. And yeah, so worship's always been a part of my life. Had mostly a lot of bad experiences, things I didn't like, and God kind of used some of those experiences to kind of help me form what we're doing at the journey.
Great. Tell us, along those lines, tell us what, if we came to a service at the Journey, what would we experience? What would the order of the service be like? The music,
Yeah, things are pretty simple at the journey. You'd hear a mix of hymns, some done very traditionally, some done that are completely rewritten. Um, you might hear some original music. You might hear stuff that's kind of in mainstream evangelical kind of Christian music. We always say that we're equal opportunity offenders, so we try to play a lot of different styles and a lot of different things to keep it fresh, keep our musicians interested, and that therefore really kind of ticks off everybody because they only get a little bit of what they like, and but that's part of being in a kind of a diverse multi-site church. One of our campuses is in the city, and I think there's like 80 languages spoken within 5 miles. And so trying to figure out how to do music and reach those people that may not even be in the door yet, and just how all that stuff works together, we're still figuring it out. So, so there may be, we're a video, we have video campuses too, and then also traveling preachers. So we have to play a quick first set on Sunday morning, and so that our preaching pastor can get on stage and get out to the next site. So the back half is usually extended in worship there, and then the next service is kind of flip-flopped. We play a longer set up front to give him time to get back and get on stage. And those aren't optimal, and we've wrestled through what that looks like. I think we've generally like to have more worship in the back half, more response-driven stuff, but it's kind of the situation we're in, and so we've kind of tweaked some things that we think about within that. But first half is usually a lot of focus songs, a lot of songs about who God is, His character, who Jesus is, what that means for us. Usually the people that are on time aren't Christians, and so a lot of people sitting in the seats early on in the service they have no idea what we're doing. And so it's just a time of focusing in. Then typically we will take an offering, and we may show a video. We've been showing video stories of just how people's lives have been changed in the church. And then Darren will preach, or we'll read scripture. Darren will preach. Then we have a short meditation time for just people to reflect. Sometimes that's completely silent. Sometimes we play music under that. Then we take communion every week. Sometimes we have silence there as people come forward. Sometimes we play instrumental music. Sometimes we play a song. It just kind of depends on how we've left people that day. And sometimes that's an in-the-moment decision. We generally plan on having music, but kind of make an in-the-moment decision, just kind of seeing like how the Spirit's leading people and how they're responding. And then we close with music, sometimes a benediction. It really depends on the Sunday and the worship leader, and so that's a typical Sunday. We also have services on Saturday, and that usually looks like more extended, more celebratory worship up front before the message, and so that's what we're doing.
How do you respond to complaints and critics when people say, "Well, I didn't like that song, I don't like that style, or I don't like you," or
Yeah, I mostly get the latter. But like I said before, we're sort of equal opportunity offenders, and so we get a ton of that. I usually send those emails to our interns, and part of that's a joke and part of it's not. And the reason that I send it to them is so that they see what kind of world that we live in, where it's we've got a lot of consumers. We also have people who have legitimate concerns about what we're singing and want to have input, and sometimes they do that appropriately and sometimes inappropriately, and I like to expose our interns to all that. Sometimes I get myself involved in those conversations, and sometimes I don't. When I do, I typically kind of get very Socratic, and I ask a lot of questions, try to get them to think like a worship leader, and so I just kind of probe with questions. So, what was it about this song that bothered you? Okay, and then they may say something like, well, it wasn't joyful enough. Okay, well, what does joyful worship look like? What does it mean to be joyful? And then I just continue to probe with every answer they get, because generally they haven't thought through it, and their thinking has maybe gone one or two steps deep, but no further. And there's so many tensions in what we do. I'm just trying to get them to a place where they feel the tension that we feel, so that they can see that we've made an intentional decision. It may not have been the right one, but they can see at least we're wrestling through the tensions and of making decisions, of trying to be sometimes joyful and celebratory, but sometimes lament and be very meditative and reflective and maybe more quiet, and how just something simple like that is an intentional decision we make, and people just think we sort of pick 5-6 songs and play them, and so I mostly want to respond with just showing people that we're being thoughtful and intentional, and they don't have to like it, and but they just it's more of a relational trust thing, and I want them to see that we're doing our best, and there's 1,000 ways that we're trying to do our best, and music is just one of them, and we're making mistakes and good decisions in all of that, and so and I find that has been winsome, and that it helps people not even focus on the music, and then it gets them to think more missionally, and particularly as we talk about, there are people coming in who have no idea who Jesus is, and the music may not please the Christians in our crowd, but we're okay with that. I feel like the Christians in our members should be able to give a little on the music, if it is reaching and speaking to non-Christians who are coming in the door. I feel like the gospel-centeredness of the truth that we sing about as we sing the scriptures is something that the Christians should be concerned with, that they should not have to bend on, and that should challenge the unbelievers who come through the door. And so we kind of flip-flop it that way, where the words we sing, I want that to challenge the worldview of unbelievers who come through the door, but I want the music to speak to them, and I think the Christians can adapt accordingly.
And then one final question for you: what do you really think about Guitar Hero?
I think that if you play the piano, you're probably better at Guitar Hero than a guitar player, because it is it looks like a piano almost in the way the notes are lined out, and so and it's mostly a rhythm game, and so I think Guitar Hero is pretty badass on one level. It gives me a headache, and then when I go to sleep at night, I still see that guitar neck just coming for me. And sometimes if I look at the wall, like it starts getting warbly, and like so if you stare at that too long, like it can jack with you. And then so I like it, but it's I think it's a game for that people who play piano or rhythm players. They're generally the best.
Great. Why don't you take us out with a song on the Papoose?